This video is a tutorial for the multi-layer cut and fold book technique. It is a more complex technique than the regular cut and fold book techniques, so it will be helpful if you are familiar with my previous tutorials. The regular cut and fold book techniques always have only two layers. One is the background and one is the foreground. The foreground makes up the subject of the pattern. If you are familiar with my regular cut and fold book techniques, you know that for the regular method 1, the positive method, the subject of the pattern is in front of the background. And for method 2, the negative method, the subject is deeper in the book than the background. In the multi-layer technique, as the name suggests, the subject is made of more than one layer plus the background. Thus, there are a minimum of 3 layers which create the whole project. Due to the fact that some layers might be deeper and some above the background, there is no separation into positive and negative methods, like in my previous tutorials. However, you can still choose to create your project using the cut-only technique. This approach will be covered in a separate video. To learn about that second method, find the link in the description below, or click on the link in the top right corner. As usual, to create any of these multi-layer cut and fold books you will need the Mark Cut and Fold pattern table or the band template. In the description of this video, you can find a link to my website where you can find a vast set of patterns. The digital files include the tables and band templates together with illustrated instructions. A book of appropriate dimensions. The patterns are designed for books of a specific height and number of pages. You can watch part 7 of this tutorial series to learn how to choose the right book for your project. You will also need a pencil to mark the places for cuts, a pair of scissors for making cuts in the book, a ruler to measure the depth of a cut. Additionally, you can use a bone folder or another suitable tool for pressing the folded sheet. You can also use some sturdy piece of plastic or metal, like an old credit card or a spoon for this purpose. As before, there are 4 steps you need to follow. Draw vertical lines, mark, cut, fold. However, in contrast to my regular cut and fold book techniques, the first step of drawing vertical lines is the most crucial as it shapes the look of the project. This step is the most complex step as there is no one best way of choosing the distance between the lines. In fact, I will describe 3 approaches for the first step. But after some practice, you may discover your own way of choosing the locations of these lines. The first and easiest approach is to draw as many lines as there is layers in the pattern you are working with, all the same distance from each other. At the beginning of Chapter 2, Patterns, you will find the information of how many layers form the pattern that you are using. So go to page 2 of the PDF file of your pattern, where you will find the table of contents, and click on the link for Chapter 2. This will take you to the correct page with this information. In this tutorial, we will work with a pattern made of 5 layers, as this is usual the highest number of layers my patterns are made of. It shouldn't get more complex than that. In my example, the lines are drawn at a distance of 1.5 centimeter from each other. But you can choose larger or smaller distance. It is up to you. Just remember that there must be space to draw all the lines. If you choose a too large distance, you may run out of space to draw all the lines on your book sleeves. For example, if your pattern is made of 5 layers and your book sleeves are 15 centimeter deep, the distance between the lines can be maximum 3 centimeter, as anything larger will mean there is no space to draw the last line. To make my life easier, I built a very simple tool by taping 5 pens together, so I can draw all 5 lines at the same time. Alternatively, you can cut out 5 lines in a sturdy cardboard. Using this instead of the ruler will help you save time on measuring the distances between the lines, but you will still need to draw each line separately. If you do not want to get too overwhelmed by the other approaches, just skip the next 2 approaches and start to watch the video from this time. If you think that your project may look better if the layers are not in the same distances from each other, then you can use the moderate approach. Here, the lines are drawn at a distance which doubles every next layer. The only distances which are the same are between the foredge in the first line and the first and the second line. The distance between the third and second line is 2 times larger than the previous one. The next distance is 4 times larger than the previous one, and the distance between the 4th and 5th line is 8 times larger. Notice that in this approach, it is easier to run out of space to draw all the lines, so start from some small number, something between 0.5 and 1 centimeter. The third approach is difficult but unrestricted, as each line can be drawn in an arbitrary place. However, the downside of it is that for every layer you need to draw an additional line, the cut line, which is half of the distance from the main line. Thus, you will need 2 times as many lines as there are layers. After the first step of drawing the lines, it is time to mark the pattern on every leaf. This step also looks different than what you know from my regular cut and fold techniques. The measurement table and the band template look differently, as they also contain information about the layer they belong to. The columns with measurements list 2 numbers, the beginning and the end position of the tab measured from the top of the leaf. The number in brackets shows the number of the layer. Since the end of every tab is the beginning of the next one, you need to measure only the second position. The first tab always starts from the top of the leaf, which is represented by the number 0.0. The end of every last tab ends on the bottom of every leaf, which is represented in the table as BE, meaning bottom edge. This is also something you do not need to measure, as it is determined by the bottom edge of your book. The whole process of marking shouldn't be more complicated than for the previous techniques. However, you need to remember to write down the number of the layer, the number in the brackets on every tab. This is crucial for the last 2 steps. If a whole row in the table says whole page, it means that a whole leaf makes up only 1 tab, and the number in the bracket indicates the layer it forms. Instead of the table, you can also use the band template. The way you use it is very similar to the regular techniques. The difference is that it is more colorful, as every color represents the layers the bands form. The definition of encoding color to the layer number is given at the bottom of page 8 of the PDF file and at the beginning of Chapter 2, Patterns, just before the first table. You can use the links in the table of contents to quickly navigate to find this info. You can click on the link, which takes you to the beginning of Chapter 2, and scroll 1 page down, or click on the first table and scroll 1 page up. For a pattern with 5 layers, the encoding layer number to color looks like this. Layer 1 is black, Layer 2 is green, Layer 3 is orange, Layer 4 is gray, and Layer 5 is light blue. You need to place the band template under your book sleeve. To speed up the process, I place the template under several leaves. Then I put a mark in the place where one band changes color to another. In between the marks, I write down the number of the layer which the color represents. The next step is to make a cut perpendicular to the lines in the place of the marks until the appropriate layer line. If you do not want to think too much about how deep you should cut, you can always cut to the second to last line. But if you want to be more precise, start from looking up, which is the highest numbered layer next to the mark. Next, subtract 1 from this number and cut until that line number. For example, if the first mark is between layers 5 and 3, the highest number is 5, so subtract 1 from it. 5 minus 1 equals 4. Thus, you cut until the 4th line. This is how you cut for the easy and moderate approaches. However, if you chose the difficult, unrestricted approach in the first step, you cut until the cut line of the highest layer which neighbors the mark from which you cut. The last step, fold, is very straightforward. Independent from the approach you chose in the first step, you fold the tabs so their edge aligns with the line of the same number which appears on the tab. For example, if the tab represents the 5th layer, you fold it so its edge overlaps the 5th line. Here we covered the multi-layer version of the cut and fold technique. If it is too overwhelming for you at the beginning, do not worry. You learned a lot of new terms. Just watch the video again and pause it after each step to apply it to your book. It is normal to read or watch tutorials more than once to understand them. So do not get discouraged. The multi-layer approach is more difficult than the regular cut and fold techniques. But once you master it, a whole new world with amazing patterns opens to you. So do not give up. NailYt book folding instructions also contain a texture. It can be used to decorate the inside parts of the cover, which are now visible. Mark, cut, fold, and enjoy your book with NailYt.